Hi, friend.
Hi, friend. Are you ready
Ready for what?
to level up?
Okay, girl, let's get started. Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Level Up with Raman and Alysha.
Hi everyone. On today's episode, we'll be having a little debate about whether people can change. And we're not talking about, obviously people change. That's a silly question. It's constant. We're always growing and we're changing and we're improving. But we're talking about when do people kind of change in their, how do I say this?
I guess depending in sometimes how some people can have an annoying trait about them, or they can be stubborn, or they can be really cheap. It can be literally any little thing about them. And it's kind of no matter what the age is, Raman and I want to test that you can change. Because I don't know if you've all heard of that saying that, they're too old. If you're talking about your grandma or, someone who's older that's stuck in their ways for so long that they're just never going to change.
They're not willing to. Or that statement that we hear a lot, once a cheater, always a cheater.
Yes.
I've always questioned, is that true though?
Yeah, is it?
I don't know. Because I feel like as women, we're always advocating women and we want to stand up for them and we want to be once a cheater, always a cheater. You can't trust them, which is true. Once you lose trust, that's it. But
yeah.
It's is that statement true for all the poor guys out there?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel then maybe we're pretty harsh. You're right. Actually, I didn't ever think of that.
Yeah. When it comes to once a drug dealer, always a drug dealer, or once a fuck up, always a fuck up.
But that's not always true.
It's not true. And I feel bad because we generalize and we make statements about these guys. Think about it. Don't you, if you saw somebody that you ran into from high school who was a fuck up and he was a fuck boy, and now you're seeing him and he's a dad with a kid and stuff like that, do you not remember what a fuck boy he was?
Yeah, it's
or
true.
Or do you think, oh,
wow,
he's come a long way.
He changed. Yeah, definitely. I have to agree with you on that. I feel there's so many stereotypes that we just get stuck into that you're right. We don't stop and realize that, hey, they could be very different in a few years. Or maybe if they're given advice or, they're shown a different route. Or maybe it's the cards they were dealt to begin with has made them this way.
Ooh, the cards that they dealt. I like that.
Yeah, right? Because think about it. Okay. Have you ever heard, when a younger girl dates an older man, they always say, oh, she has daddy issues?
Yeah.
Or
I hate that.
right? Or a guy dates an older woman, the cougar status, then he has mommy issues.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah.
Society does generalize people into categories like that.
Definitely. And I think that, that's what I mean by cards dealt, right? Maybe she did have a lot going on, or he was battling a lot growing up, right? And, I don't know if it was you and I who were talking about this, but, kids who grow up with, drug abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And, kind of, how their life may not always come out the greatest, but it depends on how they get out of it or how they deal with it or what they go and work towards for a better cause, right?
For sure. I think, and it sucks because talking about that, we said that people can come out in two ways. People who have a drug addict parent or an alcoholic parent, either two things happen. Either they become just like them and they become an alcoholic as well, or they do drugs because they think this is what their life is meant to be, or they say, no, I'm never drinking again, or I'm not doing this because I saw my parent go through it and I don't want to go through that same thing, or I don't want to have that same life. So you choose your own path.
Exactly. So Raman, how do you think you've changed in the last few years?
100%. Like I said, people change, they grow, they evolve. It's what we're meant to do as species. If you're not changing, then there's actually something wrong, because change is the only constant in the world.
Right. It's kind of like a snake.
Yeah. Oh, well, I hate snakes.
I hate snakes too, but that metaphor of when their skin, what are they
They shed their skin. It's gross. Have you ever seen it?
No, I don't want to see it, but I've heard of it, and
it looks disgusting. I mistakenly one time watched a video, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Ew.
It's actually really gross. But I'm not gonna lie. So, for example, there's people that are hot-tempered, right? And it's considered a trait, a personal trait, and they get classified this is a tempered person, and that's kind of how you get classified in general, right? And then years go by kind of thing, and then people still kind of generalize you in that way, and I feel I'm guilty for doing that. Sorry, I'm gonna use my brother as an example. It's okay, he'll never hear this. My brother And this is why I believe people can change, because he was a hot-tempered person for 2/3 of my life.
Right.
Right? For 2/3 of, maybe even more.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I just always knew him as this hot-tempered person, was impatient, didn't get along with him because of, like, this and stuff like that. I literally was like, he will not change.
Right.
I was stuck in that way because so many years had gone by. I'm like, it's a trait now. It's who you are, right?
Yeah.
And you can't change who you are. But the person he is now, I can confidently say that he is a different person. He has changed. I have seen him in situations where in the past he would flip out or get really angry or have like a specific reaction.
Yeah.
And when I see him, the way he reacts now, I'll be like, who are you? Like, he is
But he also knows because he's a father now and his son is watching.
And he learned, right? But it's also, you learn from your mistakes. You learn that, like, doing something a certain way didn't get you kind of maybe what you wanted in that point in life. And that wasn't getting him anywhere.
Yeah.
And, you know, he knows that he can't be that person he has now with his wife and his child. And, you know, so forth. So when I see him and he is like so calm and stuff like that, and I think we have a better relationship too because of that.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, you really changed. Like,
right.
And it's not like, and it was like changing a trait that was so deep within him.
Yeah.
That I used to tell everybody. I used to be like, he's not going to change.
Aww.
I used to tell everybody.
Yeah.
I'd be like, he's not going to change, and I can so proudly be like, he's such a better person now.
That's amazing.
And he's the only reason I feel like people can truly change.
No, that's a really good example. Now, what about people who are really old? Let's say like senior level. And they've lived their entire life. And they're still so stubborn and stuck in their ways and in that culture aspect of traditionalness. Like South Asian community, for example. They're so old school.
Okay, I don't know. And this is really funny because Tim said this to me the other day. He was complaining about something and he's like, oh, I understand old people now. I was like, okay, elaborate. And he was like, you know, when old people are stuck in their ways and they don't want something to change because things are working for them so perfectly, and then you come and disrupt their system or like their daily habit or whatever with this new, you know, technology and stuff like that. So it was something he was complaining about changing. And he was like, I get it. I feel like an old person because I don't want this to change. I don't want this to happen. And I kind of get it.
Yeah.
Right? How many times have we said, like, things are going perfectly the way it is? Why did Facebook have to do that update that made us all hate it?
Or Instagram. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I agree with that. But I mean, also in this, I'm talking about the aspect of, let's say, for example, okay, I've heard so many stories from family members that have had, like, not family members, but friends too, that had an upbringing of a very traditional one that started off from the grandparents.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I didn't understand your question.
That's okay.
Wow.
So okay. I'm talking about, like, the fact that, like, there is the technology part of, like, no, baby boomer. I guess
that's, like, dealing with change, but can older people change? Yeah,
so like let's say we have a grandma who's living with her son and their kids, and let's say, you know, the young daughter is like in her 30s and she's getting married, but you know the grandma is so set in her old ways that the girl can't even do certain things, like there's no engagement prior, has to have a roca, those kind of things, like, you know, the serious old school shit, like, you know, can't go out with the boy until they're married, this and that, you know. And then, like, do you think those people can ever change at that stage, right?
No.
And that's
maybe, and I don't want to say all of them can, because I'm sure there are some out there where the grandkids have kind of
no, but what if she hates on her grandchild because she's a girl?
Yeah, it's true. And that's what I do agree with you that with grandparents, and if I think about like the whole traditionalness, it's so hard for them to change, because I've been trying to change my parents, or like my mother specifically, for like the last 20 years, and I'm telling you I have failed. And there was a point in my life where I was like, I can't change her, like she's in her way, and I can't, I just did not know what to do to kind of make her see things differently. And they have like changed a bit, but honestly not a lot. I think they just have stuff that they know now that they can't control. I don't think they've changed. And I think the same thing will happen with older people, right? When they see, like, for example, now in our culture, like before it was like we would never marry anybody outside our culture and it's frowned upon. And I think grandparents are still freaking out about this kind of stuff when they see this. But it'll be like stuff that they can't control, because I think people will still do it, but it's like they will not change their
Exactly.
ways.
Yeah, no, and I definitely agree. So I think that's like kind of the exception of people who won't change their ways, but there are those that will. Yeah, so to your point, I agree. When it comes to the older tradition of people, it's a little more difficult, especially when they're set in their ways. But like you said, you've been trying to change your parents. And I think that's what our generation and the younger generations to come don't realize, is that it's in their hands to try to educate and teach their family members or their friends, that, okay, we can do it a different way. It doesn't need to be the way you've always been taught, but this is the way I've been taught, or I've seen other people do it. And I feel like, that's kind of like what our generation speaks to. If you look at YouTube, right? Okay, so our parents all learned to cook and clean from their parents, whether that be in India or Canada. The point is they learned it from someone. When it comes to our generation, we either learn from our parents or we go into YouTube and watch how other people do things, of whether they're cooking something different or they're cleaning some way different or organizing different. And we have so many outlooks to look at different things to change, as opposed to our parents and grandparents. They didn't have that. They only had word of mouth and each other. They didn't have other outlets to look at.
I have to tell you the funniest thing my dad does. So
What?
if I'm like, oh, I have to go here, he's like, oh, yeah, make a right here, da-da, left here, and da-da, and he starts going on. And I'm like, Dad, I have GPS.
Yeah, my mom's the same way.
I don't need, I appreciate it. And, one time my dad was like, I needed to fill up gas. And he was like, oh, yeah, there's a gas station right there. If you go this way, you turn. I'm like, Dad, we've been living here for 10 years. I know there's a gas station there. And he's like, yeah, but,
Just in case you forgot.
Oh, my God, it's so funny.
My mom's the same way. She refuses to adapt to car technology because she thinks that car technology is so stupid. She's like, you should not rely on a GPS. You should rely on landmarks when you're driving. And she's like, and also you should not need to do all these things while you're in the car. So she's totally against technology in the car.
Okay. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So when I think about people changing, I think about a specific person. Okay, so I had a friend who used to get abused by her whatever now husband. Broke up, whatever. I have to admit it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was I don't know, maybe when we were 20 years old or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then we grew up, kind of years go by, right? And then she decides to marry him. Right? And I didn't even know they were dating. So, because she knew that I would not approve. Because to me, that guy is her abuser, right?
Yeah.
So, and, she's like, oh, he's changed. But I, because, it's always different for, the third person viewing your relationship, right?
Yeah.
I will always see him as the abuser. It doesn't matter how many. And you know what? I've thought about this. I'm like, what if he has changed? What if he is a different person now? What if he is better? But all those what ifs, I hate to say this, but it doesn't matter because this is how I see him. So I always think did he change?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. What is it? Once a cheater, always a cheater? Is it once an abuser, always an abuser? Is it gonna be something that he doesn't do for X amount of years, but then what if one day he gets really angry and then it happens, right? Is it
So have you watched that show, Big Little Lies?
No, but it sounds like a whole bunch of other shows on Netflix.
So it's a really good show. It's based off a book by Leanne Morante or Morati. She's an Australian writer. Her books are really good. So the show that came out on HBC or HBO, and we know everything that comes on HBO is usually really good. It had Nicole Kidman, Reese Witherspoon. It had all these top actors, and they did the 8-series show. If you all have not watched it, I highly recommend watching it. Great show. Nicole Kidman.
I love Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, you should definitely watch it. I don't want to say what happens to Nicole Kidman then if you're going to watch it, but basically she's being abused.
Okay.
By her husband. And they have this picture perfect life. Mm-hmm. And they have kids. And he still physically abuses her. Oh. And it's kind of interesting because it's she does eventually get away.
Yeah.
But, she has that thought, will it change? Because every time he promises her, it'll change.
Yeah.
But he's still yet so angry and doesn't have control over himself.
Yeah.
And that's what, to say to what you just talked about, what if a situation that comes up like the one that he had before, and he abused that individual, and that happens again. That same situation comes up again.
Yeah.
What's to stop it? It's kind of like post-traumatic stress. You know, when like they say, you know, soldiers and stuff have like, they hear something and they go into post-traumatic, or they feel something.
Yeah.
How's that any different than an abuser?
Yeah, like how do you, I don't know. How do you believe, like what does the person need to do in order for you to even believe that they've changed? Because I personally feel like it would take years of like kind of evaluation. Like I don't know, like from what I know, she didn't, like there wasn't a big gap between when they got married kind of thing. So I'm like, but how do you even know he's changed? Like how can you, and you know, we hear this in our, I'm sure every girl has fucking heard this with her ex, and this is why they're exes, that like all change.
Bullshit.
They never do.
Bullshit. So I think once a cheater, always a cheater. I'm sorry to say, because especially if you're staying with the same person, if they cheated on you once, there's a reason that made them cheat on you. What's stopping them from doing it again?
Yeah.
And then same thing with abused men. He obviously, unless you're going and getting actual psychology or psychiatric help to get down to the core problem of what makes you an abuser, then that maybe you can change then. Like you've done the work, you put in the work to change, to become a new person. But if you just say, I'm not going to do this because you're marrying me, I don't believe that you're actually changing.
You know what? I actually love that you said that people who change have to actually put an effort to it. Just saying it is not enough. Yeah. It's like me saying like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to be like this type of person, or I'm just going to wake up and no, unless you make that daily effort. And yeah, some things in order to change, you do need help. If you have anger problems, you might need like anger management, you might need AA, you might need a lot of different things. But unless you're, seeking help, like, because changing yourself is like a really big mindset game, right? And it takes a lot of control, and I just don't think, because it's so easy for people to fall back into their regular habits. It's not easy for people to change.
It's not.
Right? So I don't know. Yeah, you're right. Like I feel like unless people are putting in the effort or they're doing something specific to make a decision, like I will not be this person again. And you know what? We see it with people like recovering alcoholics all the time, right? They're a great example. They go to AA, you know, they make that effort, and, you know, sometimes you relapse and sometimes you don't, and you have your strong points and your weak points, but it's a very common thing, right? Like, I know people that have, like, also, like, recovered and stuff like that. So, I mean, those type of people, when I look at that, I'm like, yeah, you can change. You can turn, you know, when they get, like, those, like, coins, like, I've been sober for this long and stuff like that, it's an accomplishment. Yeah. And it really does show, like, you have changed and you've become a better person.
Yep, I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay, I have a question for you, Alysha. In your 30 years of experience, have you ever had someone tell you something that they didn't like about you and wanted you to change?
100%.
And how, like, what was it, and how did you change? Did you do it? Like...
Okay, so... I'm not giving credit to anyone else for my change, but about 12 to 13 years ago, I had some events happen to me, and it did involve an ex-boyfriend at the time that made me realize this is not a person I want to be. And I cut off everyone in my life at that point, and I had to do me for a bit. I had to like regroup, refocus on what kind of person do I want to be? What kind of person do I want others to see me as? And what kind of person do I want to be to others? And that's the biggest wake-up call I had to have, because I needed to know, I needed to change. I did need to change. Now, no one said I needed to change, but events did impact me that made me realize, why is this happening to me? There's something wrong with me. So I did. I took that year away from people, and I actually cut a lot of people, as you know. It's one of my favorite things to do. And yeah, I almost cut too many people off, but you know, thankfully some of those stayed, knowing that I was just going through something and could understand and appreciate it. And I feel like now the person I am today is such a better person. Now I do feel like, you know, you don't need someone to tell you you need to change. Sometimes if you love yourself and know yourself, you know that, you know, I saw that. That was really funny. you know that there's something either missing, there's something that's not making people around you feel good. You might be hurting people in a certain way with words, or something. It's just something, right? Reading your room, reading your audience, and reading yourself is such an important thing. And I feel like every year is a reason to change. Every year, not on New Year's, I mean like in general, you should have awareness about something. So another thing for me is that, like, I took COVID as another huge example to change as well. My stress levels and lashing out and being more aware of that. I can't just lash out on my family all the time and friends, because it's just not fair, because we're all battling something. We're all going through a bad day and we're all feeling away, you know, and not everyone, it's not always about me. So I had to learn to realize that too. And I feel like I took COVID as an opportunity to really spend the time thinking about myself and working on those things. I say till this day, I'm not perfect. I'm still a work in progress. And, you know, it's not going to happen over like one day. It's going to take maybe a few more years, and there'll be something different I'll want to change in 10 years from now. What if I'm a mother, or I'm a mentor, or I am a role model to someone in my life, like Anaya or somebody that, you know, I always think about that. The younger generation, you know, whether it's my kids or someone that's close to me, that what am I representing? What am I showing them?
Yeah, the right person can help shape you and change into a better version of yourself. And in the similar way, a bad person can change you in a negative way.
That's so true.
And it's not even like sometimes your fault. It's literally like you become like who you hang around the most. So if you hang around a toxic ex, like there are parts of you that become a little toxic. So I feel like when I was in my toxic relationship, I do feel like there were parts of me that changed in a bad way.
Yeah.
100%. Like, and when I got out of it, I was like, I am not going to be that person again.
Yeah.
And like being in a new relationship with a completely different person with a different personality, I was like, I can't be the person I was in that toxic relationship like the same way in this healthy relationship, because people are different and you can't be the same person kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I really had to also have a moment and be like, yeah, that person was not me. Like, that was who I was in that relationship. And unfortunately, it didn't help me make a better version of myself. It only kind of...
Yeah.
Or if some qualities that I was not proud of.
That's the thing. It's people who can sometimes bring out the worst in you.
Yeah.
And that's when you have to realize, oh no, I'm only this way because of this person.
Yeah.
And then that's like, cut. You don't make me a better person. Because Raman and I have this thing, and you've heard this in our other podcasts if you've been listening for a while. We always evaluate, does this person add value to our life? Same thing applies here. Is this person adding value or making me look worse, or not making me a better person?
Yeah. And I feel like I was fucking blind, Alysha. Like,
but we
honestly,
all are.
We get, you know, like they say, love is blind, right? And sometimes you don't see like the person that you're becoming, and until it's kind of like too late, right? Until they're an ex, and then you reevaluate and you're like, wow, I was an idiot.
But you grew. You were younger, and we're all young and stupid at times, right? We're all young and blind in love. We don't know what we want or aspire to be yet, but we grow. And the most important thing is you came out of it on the other side. You knew, you recognized, you knew it wasn't right, and you knew you had to change it. And that's the most important thing. Think about all the people who don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
There's people who choose to stay in the toxic relationships and not move or change or develop or make a better situation out of this, right?
And I feel bad for those people, because even like that friend who, whatever, I'm like, did he change for the better of you, or did you go to the dark side? Which sounds really bad, because it makes you question, right? Like, who really changed for who?
Exactly. Now, Raman, has anyone ever told you you need to change? Not asked, but told you?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Like, not really fun things to hear, but I think it was like feedback that I think at the time it probably wasn't it wasn't easy to hear, but it's actually feedback that I still live by until today. So I do think it was valuable. It was just like, you know, something that was probably like an annoying habit of mine, and I almost like now do appreciate having been told.
Yeah.
And it's like, you knowing that you need to work on yourself for like this annoying habit or characteristic of yours. So like I've told you, like there's so many things that I'm like starting to recognize about myself that like I want to work on.
Yeah.
And then like us talking through it and you're like, oh yeah, I do that too sometimes.
Yeah.
And we like kind of like realize, you know, through conversation
Having
that like
self-awareness.
having self-awareness and
Sorry, continue.
and wanting to change, but wanting to change for the better of ourselves. Like we're not trying to change because
other people want
Yeah.
us to be this certain type of person.
yeah, it's like we want to be.
We want to be that better individual
version.
of ourselves. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what it is.
And I think people should continue to change in that manner. I think like if you're looking at your life and you're like, I'm not happy in my job, I'm not happy in my personal life, I'm not happy in my relationship, then you need to change something because whatever is going on right now is obviously not working. So
Exactly.
it's like if you don't change your current situation, you'll continue to have the same thing. It's like that saying, what is that thing that Tim always tells me? Like insanity is like doing the same thing but expecting different results.
Yeah.
So if you know, are
It's-
not happy, you do need to change.
Because you keep doing the same thing.
Yeah, and if you are looking at yourself and you're like, I'm not the person that I used to be, and I was a better person, or, you know, I've noticed that, like, I'm not being the best version of myself, like, work on yourself.
100%.
Change before the better.
Exactly. So take our advice and, you know, use it for the best only if you feel the need to change and you want to be a better version of yourself. Thanks so much for tuning in as always. If you're not following us on Instagram, please do. At Level Up with Raman and Alysha. If you have any stories or advice or another topic you want us to do, please email us at ramanandalysha@gmail.com.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great, positive day.
Bye.
Nice tone.